The plasma bolt scorched past Lieutenant Ryan Cole's shoulder and vaporized a chunk of the transport hull behind him. He dove behind a cargo crate, pulse rifle already raised, scanning for targets through the smoke-filled bay of the derelict station. 3 days into what should have been a routine salvage operation, and everything had gone to hell. His team was scattered. Communications were jammed, and something was hunting them through the corridors of this abandoned Kryn outpost. Ryan's heads-up display flickered with interference. He slapped the side of his helmet and the readout stabilized just enough to show movement 30 meters ahead. Fast. Too fast for human. He steadied his breathing and aimed at the corner where the motion tracker indicated approach. His finger tensed on the trigger. Then she burst around the corner. Small, maybe 4 feet tall. Grayish-blue skin that shimmered under the emergency lighting. Enormous dark eyes that locked onto his with desperate terror. She wore torn clothing that might have once been white but was now streaked with something dark. Not human. Definitely not Kryn. She sprinted directly toward him. Ryan's training screamed at him to fire. Unknown alien. Compromised facility. Active threat environment. Every protocol demanded he pull the trigger. He didn't. The girl covered the distance in seconds and threw herself behind him, tiny hands gripping the back of his tactical vest with surprising strength. She was shaking. He could feel tremors running through her small frame. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor she'd emerged from. Multiple contacts. The motion tracker lit up like a Christmas tree. Ryan raised his rifle as 4 Kryn soldiers rounded the corner. 7 feet of armored hostility, weapons raised, mandibles clicking in what passed for their language. The lead soldier barked something in Kryn. Ryan's translator was offline, but he didn't need it. The meaning was clear. Hand over the girl. Ryan felt her grip tighten on his vest. Heard a small whimper that transcended every language barrier in the galaxy. The Kryn soldier raised his weapon. A heavy plasma cannon that could cut Ryan in half. Ryan's mind raced through options. 4 armed soldiers. 1 exhausted Marine. A terrified child pressed against his back. The math was brutal, but the girl's hands, trembling against his spine, told him everything he needed to know about whose side he was on. Ryan's thumb flicked his rifle to full auto. He smiled at the Kryn soldiers. Cold. Dangerous. Human. Wrong answer. He opened fire. The first Kryn soldier's shields flared blue as Ryan's rounds hammered into them. The alien stumbled backward, but the energy barrier held. Ryan cursed and adjusted his aim, stitching a line of fire across the second soldier's exposed leg joints where armor was thinnest. Purple blood sprayed. The Kryn went down screaming. Ryan grabbed the girl with his free hand and pulled her toward a maintenance shaft he'd spotted during his initial sweep. Plasma bolts chewed through the deck plating where they'd been standing milliseconds before. "Stay close," he shouted, though he had no idea if she understood. She nodded frantically. They ran. The maintenance tunnel was tight even for Ryan. The girl slipped through easily behind him. He could hear the Kryn soldiers trying to follow, their bulk scraping against the narrow passage. It bought them seconds. Ryan's tactical mind mapped the station layout from memory. This shaft connected to the medical wing. 3 levels down, if they could reach it, there were multiple exit routes. The girl kept pace behind him, her breathing rapid but controlled. No crying, no panic, just survival instinct. They dropped through a vertical shaft. Ryan caught a rung one-handed and swung the girl onto his back. She wrapped thin arms around his neck and locked her legs around his waist. He descended as fast as he dared. Above them, a Kryn soldier appeared at the shaft entrance. Ryan looked up just as the alien raised its weapon. He let go. They fell 3 meters and crashed through a corroded grate into the medical wing. Ryan rolled, absorbing the impact with his shoulder while keeping the girl protected. Pain lanced through his ribs, but nothing felt broken. The Kryn's plasma bolt melted the ladder where they'd been hanging. Ryan scrambled to his feet and pulled the girl into the medical bay. The room was a disaster. Overturned equipment, shattered glass, and something else. Bodies. Small bodies. The same grayish-blue skin. The same delicate bone structure. Children. Dozens of them. All dead. The girl made a sound that needed no translation. Grief and horror mixed into something primal. Ryan's stomach turned to ice. He'd been in combat zones across 3 star systems, seen things that haunted his dreams. But this was different. This was systematic. This was murder. The girl pulled away from him and ran to one of the small bodies. She knelt beside it and placed her hand on its chest. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Ryan heard the Kryn moving through the corridors outside, getting closer. Hunting. He knelt beside the girl and gently touched her shoulder. She looked up at him with those enormous eyes now streaming with tears. She pointed at the bodies, then at herself, then at the door where the Kryn would emerge any second. Understanding crashed through Ryan like a physical blow. She was supposed to be dead, too. She'd escaped. And they were here to finish the job. Every regulation Ryan had ever learned about non-interference in alien affairs evaporated. Every protocol about maintaining diplomatic neutrality with the Kryn Empire burned to ash. These weren't soldiers. They were executioners, and he was standing between them and their last target. Ryan checked his ammunition counter. 40% remaining. Not good. He looked at the girl and spoke slowly, clearly.
I'm getting you out of here.
I promise. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Trust from a species he'd never met. Faith in a stranger who'd chosen to protect instead of abandon. The medical bay doors exploded inward. 6 Kryn soldiers poured through, weapons raised, mandibles spread wide in aggression. Ryan pushed the girl behind an overturned surgical table and stood between her and the aliens. He raised his rifle. 6 against 1. 40% ammunition, no backup. No support, the odds didn't matter. Ryan had made his choice the moment she'd hidden behind him.
Come on, then,
he growled and squeezed the trigger. Ryan's first burst caught the lead Kryn in the throat, right above the armor seal. The alien went down gurgling. The others scattered, taking cover behind medical equipment and doorways. Ryan ducked as return fire turned the air above him into a plasma storm. He felt the heat wash over his helmet. The girl stayed perfectly still behind the surgical table, pressed flat against the floor. Smart kid. Ryan's combat computer finally rebooted and linked with the station's damaged network. Partial schematics flickered across his visor. There. A secondary exit through the quarantine wing. 15 meters to their left, but 5 Kryn soldiers stood between them and freedom. Ryan pulled a flashbang from his belt and threw it high. The grenade bounced off the ceiling and detonated in a burst of light and sound. The Kryn recoiled, their sensitive audio receptors overloaded. Ryan grabbed the girl and ran. They made it 5 steps before a Kryn recovered and opened fire. Ryan felt something punch through his left shoulder. The impact spun him halfway around, but he kept his feet and kept moving. Blood ran hot down his arm. His grip on the rifle weakened, but he forced his fingers to hold. They crashed through the quarantine wing doors, and Ryan slammed the emergency lockdown. Heavy blast doors groaned shut behind them. It would hold the Kryn for maybe 2 minutes. Ryan sagged against the wall, breathing hard. The girl looked at his wounded shoulder with wide, frightened eyes. She reached toward it, but he waved her off. "I'm fine," he lied through gritted teeth. "We keep moving." His heads-up display showed his suit's medical systems flooding his bloodstream with combat stims and coagulants. The pain receded to a distant throb. He'd pay for it later, if there was a later. The quarantine wing stretched ahead of them, lined with sealed containment cells. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Ryan's motion tracker was clear, but he didn't trust it. The Kryn had jamming technology he'd never seen before. They moved quickly through the wing. The girl stayed at his side, matching his pace. She kept glancing back toward the sealed doors. "They're coming," Ryan agreed. "But we'll be gone before they get through." His tracker pinged. Single contact. Small. Directly ahead, Ryan raised his rifle and advanced cautiously around the corner. Another child huddled in one of the open containment cells, same species as the girl. Younger, maybe 3 feet tall. Covered in dust and dried blood that wasn't his own. The girl gasped and ran forward. Ryan tried to stop her, but she was too fast. She dropped to her knees beside the boy and spoke rapidly in a language of soft clicks and musical tones. The boy looked up at her, then at Ryan. Terror filled his eyes and he scrambled backward. The girl grabbed Ryan's hand and pulled him closer. She spoke to the boy again, gesturing at Ryan, at herself, at the sealed doors behind them. The boy hesitated, then slowly nodded. Ryan's tactical mind raced. 2 kids now, both traumatized. Both targets. The math just got worse. Behind them, something heavy slammed into the blast doors. Once, twice. Metal shrieked. Ryan checked his ammunition. 25%. He looked at the 2 children staring up at him with desperate hope, counting on him, trusting him. "Okay," he said quietly. "New plan. We don't run. We end this." He pulled up the station schematics again and studied them carefully. The quarantine wing connected to the main power distribution center. If he could overload the plasma conduits and vent them into the medical bay when the Kryn breached, it was insane. The explosion would destabilize half the station. Could kill them all, but it would definitely kill the Kryn. The blast doors buckled. Ryan could see plasma cutters working through the seams. He knelt in front of the children and pointed at a service tunnel. "You 2 go that way, fast. Don't stop. When you feel the station shake, run faster." The girl looked at him. Understanding dawned in her eyes. She shook her head violently and grabbed his vest. "I'm right behind you," Ryan said. Another lie. "I promise." She didn't believe him. He could see it in her face. The blast doors exploded inward. Kryn soldiers poured through. Ryan shoved both children toward the tunnel and turned to face the enemy. He smiled. Time to show these aliens what one human Marine could do when he had nothing left to lose. Ryan sprinted toward the power distribution center as plasma fire chased him down the corridor. He didn't look back to see if the children had escaped. He had to trust they'd listen. The Kryn were shouting now, coordinating. They knew what he was doing. Too late. Ryan crashed through the distribution center doors and immediately started ripping access panels off the primary conduits. Alarms shrieked as safety protocols detected his sabotage. He ignored them and yanked out every failsafe he could reach. A Kryn soldier appeared in the doorway. Ryan shot him twice in the chest and kept working. The plasma conduits began to glow. Temperature warnings flashed across his visor. The air shimmered with heat. Ryan set the overload sequence and turned to run. 3 Kryn blocked the exit. His rifle clicked empty. The lead soldier advanced slowly, weapon aimed at Ryan's head. It spoke in broken English. "Human fool. You die for nothing. The specimens must be eliminated." Contamination protocol. Ryan's blood went cold. Contamination? They're children. They carry the mutation. It spreads. The Empire cannot allow it. What mutation? The Kryn's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Empathy, compassion, weakness. It infected our colony. Made them refuse combat, refuse duty. The mutation came from them. It gestured toward where the children had fled. We purge it. We purge them. Understanding hit Ryan like a hammer. These children weren't victims of war. They were being exterminated because they'd somehow made the Kryn feel. The soldier raised its weapon. "You should have stayed away, human." The conduits exploded. Ryan dove through a gap between 2 Kryn as the distribution center erupted in a column of superheated plasma. The blast wave threw him 15 feet down the corridor. He hit the deck hard and rolled. Behind him, the Kryn soldiers screamed as the plasma consumed them. Ryan staggered to his feet and ran. The entire medical wing was coming apart. Bulkheads buckled, deck plates tore free. The station groaned like a dying beast. He found the children huddled in the service tunnel exactly where he'd sent them. The girl saw him and her face transformed with relief. "Move!" Ryan shouted over the chaos. Now they ran through twisting maintenance passages as the station tore itself apart around them. Ryan's suit computer screamed warnings about structural integrity and hull breaches. He ignored all of it and focused on the escape route he'd memorized. They emerged in the docking bay where Ryan's shuttle waited. He sealed the airlock behind them and threw both children into crash seats. His fingers flew over the launch controls. The docking clamps released. The shuttle's engines roared to life. They punched through the bay doors just as a secondary explosion ripped through the station's spine. Debris peppered the shuttle's hull. Alarms wailed. But they were clear. They were alive. Ryan set course for the nearest human outpost and collapsed into the pilot's seat. Pain flooded back as the combat stims wore off. His shoulder felt like molten metal. His ribs screamed. He was pretty sure he had internal bleeding. He looked back at the children. They stared at him with those enormous dark eyes. The girl reached out and touched his hand. She spoke in her musical language. Ryan's translator finally came online. Her words appeared on his visor. "Thank you for not leaving us." Ryan's throat tightened. He'd killed Kryn soldiers today. Destroyed their station. Violated about 40 different interstellar treaties. And he'd do it all again without hesitation. "You're safe now," he managed. "I've got you." The boy spoke next. The translator rendered it. "Why did you help us? We are not your species." Ryan thought about that. About every reason he shouldn't have intervened. About regulations and protocols and the cold mathematics of survival. Then he thought about the girl's hands trembling against his back. About trust given freely. About choosing to protect instead of destroy. "Because you needed help," Ryan said simply. "That's all that matters." The girl smiled. It was the first time he'd seen her smile. It transformed her face. Ryan's communicator crackled to life. His commander's voice cut through the static. "Lieutenant Cole, what's your status?" "We've detected massive explosions at the salvage site." Ryan looked at the children. At the destroyed Kryn station falling away behind them. At the diplomatic nightmare he'd just created. "Mission accomplished, sir," he said. "Bringing back survivors. 2 of them. I'll explain when I arrive." "Survivors? Cole, what the hell happened out there?" Ryan closed his eyes. "Something that needed to happen, sir." The shuttle's medical bay was barely functional, but Ryan managed to patch himself up enough to stop the bleeding. The children watched him work with curious eyes. The girl kept trying to help, bringing him supplies before he asked for them. She was learning fast. Ryan's communicator had been silent for the past hour. That wasn't good. Command was either deciding how to handle this or already sending ships to intercept him. He didn't care. These kids were reaching human space alive, even if it meant the end of his career. The boy finally spoke again. "The Kryn will hunt us." "They always hunt us." Ryan looked at him. "How many of you were there before?" The girl's fingers moved in a counting gesture. 217 in the colony. Then the soldiers came. They said we were broken. Defective. They took us to the station for processing. Her voice dropped. Processing meant killing. "How did you 2 survive?" "I hid in the waste systems," the boy said. "They didn't look there." "Too dirty for them." The girl touched her chest. "I ran when the first explosion started, found the maintenance tunnels. Then I heard you, felt you, knew you were different." "Felt me?" She nodded. "The mutation, it lets us sense emotions, intentions. The Kryn hate it because it made their workers feel their pain, made their soldiers question their orders, made them see us as alive instead of resources." She looked directly at Ryan. "When I felt you, I felt protection, safety. No hate, just duty and kindness fighting together." Ryan sat back, processing this. An entire species being exterminated because they could make their oppressors feel empathy. The Kryn Empire couldn't allow that, couldn't risk their military machine developing a conscience. His communicator burst to life. Not his commander this time, someone higher up the chain. "Lieutenant Cole, this is Admiral Patricia Grant. You are ordered to return to designated coordinates immediately. The Kryn Empire has filed a formal complaint. They're claiming you abducted key witnesses to a quarantine breach and destroyed their medical facility." Ryan's jaw clenched. "That's interesting fiction, Admiral. Is it true you're transporting 2 Kryn subjects? I'm transporting 2 children who are about to be executed." "Ma'am?" Then Grant spoke again, her voice harder. "Cole, you've started an interstellar incident. The Kryn are threatening to consider this an act of war. They want those subjects returned immediately." "Subjects? That's what they're calling murdered children now?" "Lieutenant, I understand your position, but we cannot risk war with the Kryn Empire over 2 alien refugees. The political ramifications—" "They're not refugees," Ryan interrupted. "They're survivors of genocide. There's a difference. We have treaties, protocols. The Kryn have sovereignty over their own species." Ryan looked at the children. Look. The girl was listening to every word, even though she couldn't understand English. But she understood his tone, understood he was fighting for them. "Admiral, with respect, the treaties don't cover systematic extermination of children. If we hand them back, we're complicit in murder. The Kryn say it's a medical quarantine, a disease vector. The disease is empathy, Admiral. They're killing kids because those kids make people feel things, because they're teaching Kryn workers that suffering matters. That cruelty has consequences. Another pause. Longer this time. When Grant spoke again, her voice had changed. Softer, older, tired. Off the record, Cole? Yes, ma'am. I have grandchildren, 3 of them. If someone tried to hurt them because of who they were, what they could do, I'd burn down worlds to keep them safe. She sighed. But I'm an admiral. I have responsibilities that go beyond my personal feelings. So does the Alliance. We cannot afford a war. Ryan's heart sank. He knew what was coming. I'm ordering you to rendezvous with Kryn vessels at the border. Transfer the subjects. Return to base for debriefing. The girl's eyes widened. She felt his despair before he could hide it. Ryan stared at the deck. Everything in him screamed to refuse, to run, to fight. But where would he go? The Kryn controlled half the known galaxy. The Alliance controlled the other half. There was nowhere to hide. 2 children who radiated empathy like a beacon. Unless... An idea formed. Desperate. Probably insane. Admiral, I need 24 hours before the transfer. Absolutely not. The Kryn want this resolved immediately. 24 hours, ma'am. I have critical intelligence about Kryn operations that needs to be documented. If we're handing these kids back, Command needs to know exactly what the Kryn are doing and why. Full deposition, medical scans, everything. He could hear Grant thinking. Intelligence was currency. If Cole came back with actionable information about Kryn extermination protocols, it could be valuable. 12 hours, Grant finally said. That's all I can give you. And Cole, don't do anything stupid. No, ma'am. Just documentation. The line went dead. The girl touched his arm. You're going to give us back to them. Ryan met her eyes. No. I'm going to save you, but I need you to trust me one more time. Ryan pushed the shuttle to maximum speed toward a destination he'd sworn never to visit again, the Outreach. A cluster of independent stations in neutral space where humans, aliens, and outcasts traded in everything from technology to secrets to new identities. It was lawless, dangerous, and completely outside Alliance or Kryn jurisdiction. The children sat quietly as Ryan worked. He transferred every credit he had to an encrypted account, pulled in favors from people he'd served with, called in debts from contacts he'd made in darker times. What are you doing? The girl asked. Making sure you disappear, really disappear. New identities, new home, somewhere the Kryn can't reach you. They will find us. They always find us. Ryan looked at her. Not if you're under human protection. Not if someone keeps watch. You cannot watch us forever. No, but I know people who can. Good people who won't ask questions. The boy spoke up. Why are you sacrificing everything for us? Ryan stopped typing and considered the question. He thought about the bodies in that medical bay, about the girl's terrified eyes when she had hidden behind him, about a galaxy where empathy was treated as a disease worth exterminating. Because someone has to, he said finally. Because if we hand you back, if we let them do this, then we're saying it's okay. That some lives don't matter. That convenience is more important than conscience. He shook his head. I can't live in that universe. Won't. The Outreach appeared on his scanners. 3 massive stations connected by docking tubes, surrounded by a cloud of smaller vessels. No central authority. No real law. Just survival and negotiation. Ryan's contact pinged him immediately. A woman named Victoria Lang, former Alliance intelligence. Now she ran an underground network that relocated refugees and protected people who needed protecting. Her face appeared on his screen. Sharp features, gray hair, eyes that had seen too much. Ryan Cole, didn't expect to hear from you again. I need the full package. 2 clients, immediate placement. Victoria's eyes narrowed. What kind of heat are we talking? Kryn Empire, genocide survivors, active extermination order. She whistled low. That's not heat, Cole. That's a supernova. Do you have any idea what you're asking? I have credits, favors, whatever you need. I need you to understand what this means. If I take them, I'm declaring war on the Kryn. My whole network becomes a target. Ryan looked at the children. They were holding hands now, understanding that their fate was being decided. They're kids, Victoria. They're being killed for being able to feel compassion, for making others feel it too. If that's not worth protecting, what is? Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Hard and fierce. Dock at Station 2, Bay 17. And Cole? You better have one hell of a story for when the Alliance comes asking. 20 minutes later, Ryan stood in Victoria's office with the children beside him. She knelt in front of them and spoke gently. I'm going to keep you safe, give you new names, new lives. You'll live with families who will love you, protect you, but you can never go back, can never use your real names. Can you do that? The girl looked at Ryan. He nodded. She turned back to Victoria. Yes, we can do that. Victoria stood. Then we have a deal. She looked at Ryan. And you? What happens when the Alliance realizes what you've done? Court-martial. Probably prison, maybe worse. Was it worth it? Ryan looked at the children one last time. The girl smiled at him. That same transforming smile. The boy nodded with respect beyond his years. Yeah, Ryan said quietly. It was worth everything. Victoria's people came and took the children away. The girl looked back once as they left. Ryan raised his hand in farewell. Then they were gone. Ryan returned to his shuttle and set course for Alliance space. His communicator was already lighting up with demands for his position, orders to report immediately. He destroyed a kin station, violated treaties, defied direct orders. His career was over, his freedom probably gone. But 2 children who had been sentenced to death were alive and safe. 2 kids who could teach empathy would grow up free, would maybe teach others, would maybe change something in this brutal galaxy. Ryan thought about the moment the girl had run to him, the split second when he'd chosen to protect instead of question, to act instead of hesitate. Sometimes one human making one choice was enough. He opened a channel to Admiral Grant. Lieutenant Cole reporting. I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Grant's voice was cold. You better have a good explanation, Lieutenant. Ryan smiled. I do, ma'am. The best one. I did the right thing. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, carrying him toward judgment, consequences, and whatever came next. He had no regrets, not one.